jigsaw. And by the way, does anybody else do that? Like guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? So we went ahead and picked up one of these guys. I went ahead, threw a Deutsch connector on here, and I'll explain more about this later. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are back on the Z2H8 Camaro. The past few videos, we've had the drive shaft loop and the parachute mount and handle setup is all complete. So we got that stuff from Motion Raceworks, and all the fab stuff we've gotten from Applied Racing Technology, which is our local shop here in Clearwater, Florida. So I got a piece of metal here from those guys from ART, and it is a 6x4 sheet of 40 thousandths or 30 thousandths aluminum. I can't remember. I'll go ahead and mic it just to make sure. But we got a big sheet of aluminum. We're gonna have to take the rear glass out, and we're gonna have to take the fuel cell and the water box out as well. So probably just take those out as a precautionary. Definitely the fuel cell needs to come out because the sparks gonna be flying. Fuel and sparks, not a good thing. So we'll get into the cabin and take out the seat, probably take out the CO2 bottle, and then go ahead and start mapping things out. So not quite sure how it's gonna lay out, if it's gonna be one straight piece up the wall and then one across, or if it's gonna be two pieces up the wall. I'm not sure. So we need to kind of be very meticulous and definitely take our time doing this. So it might take a little while, but I think the end result will be very well. Excuse me, and look really good. So bear with me. We'll get through this and we'll see how it turns out. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we got our first official piece all done. I know it says, I say done, but yeah, it's all mapped out basically. So we have our little cutouts for the bars on all four over there. And then what I did is actually put these extra pieces behind it. So when you look down, you can't see anything, but you'll see the aluminum. So it goes behind this little strip right here. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. I know it's just a piece of paper, so getting to cutting will be the next challenge. So I think what I'm gonna do is hold off on transferring this to the metal. I'm gonna take this out, and then what I'll do is I'll start cutting, and I'll leave myself, a good inch or two. That way I have somewhere to put rivets and whatnot, or some type of adhesive. I might do adhesive back here so you don't see rivets, but either way, we'll get it cut out. That way it's nice and flat, and see how it fits up. All right, guys, it's been a few days. Been thinking about how I wanted to cut this or go about making the rear panel. So I've got a line that I scribed into the back here along this rail, so I know it's nice and straight, and then kind of just freeform this a little bit. I might just chop it off right here straight into the square and just go straight across. So I am going to be keeping this center section, and it'll kind of droop down a little bit. I didn't make an actual mark, but you can see my scribe line. I'm going to keep the center section, that way I have a nice place to rivet, that way I can rivet the actual panel on there. It's gonna be really tight behind this bar, so what I might do is either rivet it from underneath, which now that I think of it, it's gonna be really a pain in the ass. So what I might do is actually just cut where this existing cut was and just leave it like that. So actually that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna cut where the existing cut was, where it was spot welded back together when we originally did the cage. So I'm gonna cut all that out, and then cut this whole center section out, cut these little humps out, and then we'll lay our paper template back in there and see how it fits up. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to cutting. All right, so here in the back of the package tray, you guys, we went ahead and added some aluminum supports. It'll give us a nice cool look with some rivets going through the center of them, but also more importantly, it is to hold in this factory piece of the package tray itself. So did the same thing, but we did it going down, and this is actually an L angle bracket. So it's got, if you can see that, it's got definitely more rigidity than these just kind of single layer pieces, which up here I didn't really need it, but down there I wanted to make sure everything was sturdy. So that's what we went ahead and did. Got the whole area cleaned up, so everything's mocked up. I put some nut certs in the bottom of those little L brackets right there. That way they can bolt into the car. And then we'll use some rivets up top. But right now, what I'm doing is I got my paper template all done for the rear. So lays in there nice and flat. And right now I've just got it traced out. And unfortunately, I don't have a really good place or a way to cut this. So I'm going to try to use a, what do they call it? I forgot what you call these things. Jigsaw, there you go. So I do have a cordless jigsaw, and I've got some metal blades for it. So we're gonna give that a shot. I did a test piece and actually worked pretty well. So if it doesn't work well on this, we'll just go ahead and use a death wheel and cut that out. So got my shape cut out, and we're gonna do it pretty rough. That way we can come back and clean it up, because I'd rather just make this once and just take our time making up all the holes, making sure everything lines up, and then we'll go ahead and get it temporarily fastened to the car with the Clecos like I've shown you guys. So all these basically temporary fasteners where you can Cleco the sheet metal into the car of the holes where you put it. So you saw me use those on the firewall piece that we did as well. So gives us the ability to mock everything up, act like it's installed, and then we'll take it out, paint it up, make it look nice and pretty, and put it back in the car for good. Well, you guys, my idea of using my little jigsaw, and by the way, does anybody else do that? Like guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? Girls, you probably don't. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. Either way, yeah, got it cut out, made a huge mess. Garage is a disaster, so it means we're doing something cool. And yeah, so I got the metal in. I actually already started drilling my holes. I got my spacing off of this reference point and then off of the roll bar itself. So if you see that thin little line, that's all my rivets that I'm going to drill and get placed in here. So what I'm going to do is start drilling up all these holes, start using our Clecos, get everything lined up. And then, yeah, here shortly we'll have this entire panel drilled up and a bunch of Clecos in it. So put you guys on time lapse and you can see how it's done. Just like that, we got our rear panel all drilled up. So we got all of our temporary fasteners. Remember, these are called Clecos. Got all of their Clecos installed. And the only thing I really actually have to do now is move this crap out of the way. You guys remember I showed you this morning that we're gonna drill up those guys too. So what I'm gonna do is actually drill those from the bottom. Might be a little bit more difficult, but that way I know exactly where the holes are. I don't have to try to like find the holes or anything like that. So just want to drill those once. So I'm gonna drill straight underneath, get those knocked out, put some Clecos in it, make sure everything lines up, do our final trimming, cutting, and all that good stuff. And then we can worry about painting this up once we get the front side done. So at least the top side will be done. I think this is the most difficult part about this process, is actually getting everything lined up, fit up, drilled up, and installed. So we're almost there. We're doing good. All of our cuts look pretty good, so I'm pretty pleased about that. So yeah, let's just keep rolling and get this thing knocked out. All right, you guys, so it's the next day, and we made a lot of progress yesterday. We got the rear panel done. I also went ahead and put on some etching primer, so this is ready for paint. We'll just have to give it one quick clean, and we'll be ready to go. I also touched up all the roll bar stuff with our Steel It, and we have all of our package tray area that remains. Got it painted all nice and painted up. That way it's all protected. We got our floor spots redone, and I'm not sure why, but the Raptor liner coming out of the can is much shinier than the stuff coming out of the 2K, the mix it yourself stuff. So I've got some satin black paint. I'm gonna try to just test it and see if it matches, because that'll annoy the crap out of me, knowing that it's a different shade or a different sheen. But yeah, just minor details. So now what we're gonna do is actually work on this rear panel. It should go a little bit easier. It should be a little bit smoother than the top panel, just because it's less intricate. I don't have to cut around any roll bars. It's just one flat piece, you know, trace the shape up, and we'll see how it turns out. So we'll go ahead and get to work and get this package tray wrapped up. All right, rear firewall. We got our cardboard construction paper, we're gonna call it. we got our template all made up, so it was actually a lot simpler than I thought. Obviously, the most difficult things were the end pieces, so I did those separately, and then just one piece in the middle with a tiny cutout, like right there for a little hump. No big deal. We'll get it all sealed up. But yeah, so I think what I'll do now is I'll take that out, transfer it to the metal, and start cutting it up. So went ahead and skipped that on all the boring parts for you guys. So went ahead and touched up the paint. It's still drying. It still looks pretty shiny, so I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I guess leave it. I did put foam tape over all of the support structure that holds the panel. And it's also, everything's already drilled, countersunk, everything's good to go. Same thing with up top. So we got our top panel painted up. I had a weird issue with the paint that I was using, just Rust-Oleum. It's almost like it got a dry spot. Not sure why. It was sitting in the sun, so maybe that's why. Either way, it came out pretty good. I used the gun instead of a like a spray can, and right now it's probably, oh, it's actually cooled down pretty much all the way so far. So we got our back panel on there as well, just cooling down. Like I said, these were in the sun, so they are hot. And yeah, so we'll go ahead, get these installed, and go ahead and show you the riveting endeavor we're going to be doing here shortly. So a lot of rivets, probably close to 50, 60 rivets, I'd say, roughly. I could be way off, I'm not sure. Either way, got everything cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and get these things on there and start riveting them in for good. Ran into a small problem. All the clecos that you see in here, plus these 3 holes, I need longer length rivets, and I only got 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch length rivets, and I should have grabbed what they call a grip gauge from work. Now, a grip gauge is you put it into a hole of the pieces of metal that you're trying to pull together with the rivet, and it's got a little hook on it, so you pull in, move it, pull up, and it'll tell you the length of rivet that you need to, the grip of the rivet that you need to pull all of those together properly. Now, you can pull rivets that are too long. Sometimes they hook, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're loose. And then same thing for too short. You can kind of sometimes get away with it depending on what it is, but aviation wise, you really don't get away with it. You have to have the correct length fasteners. So here, not too worried about it. Like I said, the new ones are coming. They're supposed to be here today. They didn't show up, so we'll see where those are at. But yeah, we'll get the new ones shot on and wrap up the package tray area, put the glass back in, put the fuel cell back in, get this car running and driving again. Just like that, Amazon arrives with their rivets and we got them shot on. So we are now 100% fully installed, which is super sick. Doesn't really rattle, which is cool. So I'm glad I put down that whatchamacallit, that foam tape rubber seal looking stuff. So pretty cool, pretty good, pretty happy. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and celebrate inside with a nice adult beverage. And what we'll do, excuse me, is get prepped up for the window install. So I'm gonna get all this kind of painted black. Not all this, but you know, some of the stuff you'll see, even though the glass is gonna come back out. But we'll go ahead and get it painted black. And we're going to also, it's hard to see, but there's a couple of gaps down here at the bottom that there's just no way of me filling. So what I'm going to do is actually get some seam sealer and fill those up, which isn't a big deal. do some pretty good stuff. And yeah, I'll just get it sealed up. That way it's 100% sealed from the cabin. I'm not worried about the top. The top's pretty sealed as it is. And like I said, we'll get the rear glass back installed, the tank back in, get this thing running and driving again. All right, guys, the rear package tray is done. I got everything sealed up. I got the fuel cell back in the car. We got the fuel pump hung. We got everything back together except for one thing, and that's because we're going to add a battery disconnect relay. Instead of just our mechanical switch, we're going to add a relay to the car. That way we have an e-stop, an electrical stop inside the car in my area that I can just push off, kill the car immediately. We will still utilize the one on the back, still have to have that one, but we will not be using it as a mechanical one anymore. Well, technically it's still a mechanical pull and push and pull switch, and so is the other one. But we will be using this relay a little bit different than you would expect with this type of battery disconnect switch. So I'll go ahead and show you that real quick. All right, so this is our battery disconnect relay from HCR Innovations. Now this is from, you guys might know him as Devin Vanderhoof on YouTube. That guy has tons and tons and tons of knowledge and videos on his YouTube channel all about car wiring, plumbing. I mean, you name it, he does it. And he is straight to the point, no BS, just facts. So ordered this from him, from his website, and we will be utilizing this instead of the kind of older style battery disconnect. So we will still be using this disconnect as just a normal switch, so as in basically an on off switch. So what we will do is take our battery leads, which are 2-gauge heavy wire, heavy welding cable, and we will shorten these up probably about by 6 feet total from where I'm standing holding these up to the battery. Now we will mount this inside the car. We'll have a positive from the battery, and then the other post will be to our power distribution, or basically our bulkhead fitting on the firewall that I've showed you guys before. So we'll have from the battery and then to the power distribution. Now that shortens up a lot of the cable. Now the way we will utilize this older switch with the same lugs that are on it is with this built-in economizer on the relay, which is back here. So it's got 2 wires. It's got power and a ground wire. Now the red wire will have a positive wire coming from this lead that will go to the switch. From that switch back to this Deutsch connector. Okay. Now I just threw the Deutsch connector on there. It doesn't come like that, but you guys can easily just use a butt splice or whatever you guys want to use. I like Deutsch connectors because they're fun and they look good. So from the switch, or sorry, from positive side of the relay to the switch, from the switch to this red wire. All right. Now I will explain what the black wire does here in a second once I get inside the car. Okay, now that we are inside the car, here's our billet e-stop button that we got, and it is just a simple push and a twist to reactivate, or have an open, or sorry, have a closed switch. So when it's pushed, it's actually open, meaning it breaks the ground wire that I'm using this switch for. So when you open it, the circuit is closed, but when you push it, the circuit is open. Kind of backwards how you would normally think of a switch, but that's just how it goes. So open, which means the circuit is open, and I have a ground wire coming from this switch over to a chassis ground on our little distribution thingy over there. So this has a chassis ground. The other wire, which is running over here, and it's this long wire right here, this is the ground wire that will connect to this ground wire on here. So in order for this relay to turn on, you need power and ground, which means you need the power switch open, or closed, I should say. You need the power switch closed. That's the one on the back I just explained to you. And then you will need your ground switch from closed to, or sorry, open to closed. So remember, when this button is out, it's actually closed circuit. So that will complete the power side out, or power side in, ground side in, which will activate the relay, which means we'll have our battery power come in and then go out of this side over to our power distribution. So pretty simple. It definitely allows us to add a a secondary kill switch inside the car, which is really nice for safety reasons. And I'll probably go ahead and mount it somewhere over here and get all that figured out. So there's all of our current wiring. We got our mega fuses down there, and yeah, I just think I'm gonna put it somewhere down there or up here, just somewhere out of the way. We'll have plenty of extra length cable, so that's really nice to work with. All right, guys, so we got our final install of our HCR battery disconnect relay. We have our main battery supply from here, so it's coming from the battery. This is going to our distribution block up on the firewall, and then we have our Deutsch connector that has our power and ground for the economizer built into this guy. So we have our power wire coming in here, or coming from the main battery. This wire runs all the way back to our original kill switch in the back, and then a second wire comes into this Deutsch connector power side and then feeds power to here. And then same thing with the ground. The ground wire goes to the chassis ground and then through the switch and then back to here. So once the switch in the rear is active and the switch up front is active, as in both closed, we have power to the relay, and you can actually hear the relay click on. So it does have an audible click, not a noise or anything, but you can hear it movement inside of it. So yeah, so pretty easy install. Like I said, it did take away, or I should say we did remove probably about 6 feet of our 2-gauge wire. So shed a little bit of weight and then just replace it with this really thin wire. It's about 14 or 16 gauge wire right there. And we ran that all the way back and then back up to the Deutsch connector. So super easy install. Probably should have done this from the get-go, but you know, you live and learn, and there's always continuous improvement to be had. So easy install, and we will continue with our package tray. Well, that'll conclude our rear package tray. Got the glass reinstalled. Probably definitely one of my least favorite jobs to do on the car. Relocated the parachute mount from Motion on the side of the shifter. So I had these little L brackets that I used. You can kind of see them there. Use some riv nuts, and we got our parachute back fully installed. We got our e-stop up there. Everything's the same. We got our, you can kind of see it, our battery disconnect relay up there. So that's all we got for the Camaro, you guys. So the next time you see this thing, we'll be going down the track again, possibly the quarter mile. We'll get some more data and make this thing faster and faster every time we get out. So we do have a couple things planned for the Tahoe, not much, but just a few simple things, some pretty common things I'm gonna show you guys that you can do on these things to increase the steering responsiveness for super cheap. So stay tuned for that. Like always, you guys, thank you so much for subscribing and thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next episode.